meeting is being recorded.
All right. So good evening and welcome to tonight's Affordable Housing Report Card for St. Louis program at the St. Louis Public Library. Tonight's presentation will help attendees learn about the state of affordable housing in St. Louis using the Affordable Housing Report Card and discover and discuss ways to improve access to affordable housing in our region. Tonight's presenter is Sunny Hutton, Director of BlackRock Consulting. BlackRock Consulting is an employee-owned consulting firm focused on making St. Louis better for all residents. Some of BlackRock's work includes fund development for nonprofits, government relations, and environmental and sustainability planning for area businesses. Before we begin tonight's program, I have a few housekeeping items. As I mentioned, the program is being recorded and will be available to view on the library's YouTube channel within 48 hours. Audience questions were submitted ahead of time via a Google form, and we popped in the link to that in the chat box. So if you have additional questions that come up during the program, please use the Google form to submit those. We will get to as many as time allows, and we ask that attendees please keep yourselves on mute during the duration of the program. Thank you for coming, and now I will turn it over to Sunny.
Hi, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you for coming and participating in this evening's discussion. As was stated, I'm Sunny Hutton and I'm with BlackRock Consulting, and I'm here to talk about the St. Louis Affordable Housing Report Card. So this report card allows advocates to assess whether the region is actually making progress towards providing affordable housing for its residents. It's really a snapshot. It tells us where we are right now in meeting those housing needs, and then it gives us a grade based on our housing goals in the city and in the county. So this snapshot can provide us as a baseline so that we can really set intentional goals and strategies to improve our ability to provide affordable housing to everyone. Now, I know we put this at a time where you would be eating dinner. So if you need to grab a snack, go ahead and do that. If you need to take care of yourself in any way, just, keep the volume up and go ahead and take care of yourself in the way that you need to. I just had to hurry up and stuff my dinner in my mouth. So I'm excited that you all already submitted some questions. So hopefully we can get them answered tonight. And if not, I'll be able to get back to some of your questions if I could get the emails provided, and I can send all the answers that you need or the resources that you may need to get your questions answered. All right, so this report card was created with the encouragement and support of many affordable housing stakeholders in our region. The Deaconess, they paid for it. The Community Builders Network, they commissioned it on behalf of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Coalition. And Urban RX was one of the lead consultants on creating the report card with support from OCO Design and Engagement. And then of course, me here, I'm with BlackRock. We're helping with the community engagement component. So before this report card, we really lacked the baseline data to guide policymakers and advocates as they made decisions and demands around housing that impact residents. So now with this report card in hand, we can have a fuller understanding of where we are, which is the first step in us being able to take action. So two of the challenges for affordable housing advocates are quantifying the need for affordable housing and then setting concrete goals for housing policy and programs. So this is going to give us a solid assessment of where we are currently, and then it can inform the policy and incentives and incentivize the specific kinds of housing development that will meet our community's needs. Now, I know we all want to hop into the data and figure out what's it saying based on at each income level we want to know. But before we hop into that, we cannot talk about affordable housing in the St. Louis region without considering race. And race has sculpted St. Louis's social geography and physical infrastructure, both dividing Black and white families physically and economically. So this geography of inequity was created intentionally throughout many decades by those in power and reinforced sometimes unintentionally by systems and infrastructure. Some of you may already be aware of this. And for those who aren't, I'm going to give you a little bit of background. But if you want to know more about St. Louis's housing and affordable housing historical context, put that in the chat or that Google form as your question, and I'll be able to send you some resources on that, even some good reads. So the concentrated areas of poverty that we see particularly in North St. Louis exist because of historic and continued segregation of the St. Louis region based upon race and social class. Things like redlining, economic disinvestment, and outright neglect have caused majority Black communities to unequally bear the burden of substandard housing, as well as accompanying health disparities, social consequences caused by lead pollution, illegal dumping, and air pollutants. The list goes on. But this disinvestment often contributes to the lack of amenities that we see in our neighborhoods, including grocery stores, healthcare facilities, and green spaces, which continuously creates a cycle of poor health that further perpetuates intergenerational poverty. Now, while the lack of quality and affordable housing for lower income residents affects people of all races, and we'll see this in the report, we must specifically address St. Louis's history and context of racial segregation and its pervasive effects in our economy. So I know you've heard this before. Some of you probably came here and said, what are you talking about? St. Louis is so affordable. We've heard it before. And, to many people, St. Louis is affordable. We got that free zoo, we got the art museum, but affordable housing in St. Louis is really a tale of two cities. Those of a certain income and household size will never experience difficulty achieving affordable housing here in St. Louis. They can live where they want and when they want and be guaranteed a standard quality of life as well. Here's some reality. We've heard quotes from folks saying, I'm on a waiting list 10 years for a housing voucher. So the reality is dependent on your income level. Affordable housing can be a mirage. Some folks see St. Louis as this beautiful oasis in the desert, but it's not. It's a mirage for some families, especially families making less than 25K. They have incredible levels of competition for affordable housing. And I'll show you in just a moment when we get into that detail. Some people are waiting 10 years just to get assistance, just to lighten their housing burden. So that fact just helps us to illustrate the value of unmet demand for affordable housing in our area. 10 years on the waiting list. So some important limitations to know about this report is about the data. So first, there's a lot of data in here that is not a quantitative data. And this report kind of lacks the humanizing component of telling the stories of people. So that's why it's going to be a big help if any one of you out there, if there's something that you've experienced in terms of difficulty finding affordable housing, being on a waiting list for years, or maybe even being discriminated against for housing. Us hearing your story is going to be really crucial to putting a face to these numbers, right? Another thing about this data is there's currently a lot of data that's not being tracked on a local level or state or federal level. Some data that particularly data around severe housing problems by race. So that's data that we want to be able to track. I'm going to go through some definitions as well. I don't want to bog you down with all of these community development or federal terms. I don't want to bog you down with them. But I do want to make sure that you understand when I'm using acronyms like AMI. So AMI stands for Area Median Income. And it varies based upon the household size, county of residence, and total household income. So it's not an average, it's the midpoint of a region's income distribution. So right there, our midpoint is the 74,700. Folks to the left of that 74,000, they're considered low income. And folks to the right of it would be considered of higher income. Now, the folks on the left, the lower you go down in each of those brackets, will say it's 80% of the area median income. That's a certain income level. We'll say 50% of the area median income. And I'll show you this image here to help you out a little bit. So households that are less than 80% of the AMI are considered low income households. So that's less than that 74,000. And then it goes down each time. So households earning less than 50% of the area median income are considered to be very low income. And then it continues, households owning, less than 30% of the AMI are considered extremely low income. So affordable rents at each of those levels vary. Another key term that you're going to hear me say for the purposes of the scorecard is housing cost burden. So housing cost burden includes both rent burden for renter occupied households and housing cost burden for owner occupied households. So when you're rent burden, that means your household is paying more than 30% of its income on rent and utilities. If you are a homeowner and your housing cost burden, that means your household is still paying more than 30% of its income, but it also includes housing costs, mortgage, taxes, utilities, and fees. So as you can see from these maps, housing burden for renters is primarily concentrated in the north, with rashes of housing burden in like little specks of it in South St. Louis. And you see some in South County as well. Housing cost burden is less prevalent when you're a homeowner than it is for renters. So what is affordable rent at these different income levels? So affordable rent, of course, like we said, is based on your income, where you live, and then how many people are in your household. So for our region, here are affordable rents based on at these different income brackets. So for those making less than 22,000, an affordable rent for them is $549 a month. So that includes rent and utilities. So we'll get more into that in a bit. So this is our actual report card. So it's just like when you were in grade school and you took math, you took science, you took all these different areas and you got graded on it. And now you have to show your mama, you have to show your parents your grades. And it's pretty simple. So A's are normally 90 to 100%. B's are 80 to 89. C's are 70 to 79. D's are 60 to 69. And F's, you didn't understand the curriculum at all. You got a 59 or below. So when we look at this report card, our overall grade for how many households are we providing affordable housing for? Excuse me. Our overall grade is a C. So we're showing 71%, which is C. 71% of our households have affordable housing. And so C isn't so bad, right? When you think of it, you've heard the saying C's get degrees, but we really need to break this down to see who's winning and who's losing in the St. Louis region. So 56% of renters have affordable housing in St. Louis. So this is St. Louis and county, and this is scoring us an F. Compared to homeowners, where 79% of homeowners have affordable housing, which is a C grade. So whether you can find affordable housing in St. Louis very much depends on your income. As you can see, the lowest income brackets, so that's 50% AMI and below, we have an F on providing affordable housing for that income bracket, for those income brackets. At the lowest income bracket, 22% of households have affordable housing. That is, yeah. So the only group who achieves an A in affordable housing are the people who are making more than the area median income. So there's plenty of affordable housing for folks in the higher income bracket. Now, this slide that I'm showing you breaks it down based upon race. So 77% of white households can access affordable housing, scoring a C. But only 56% of Black households have access to affordable housing, scoring us an F. Likewise, while only 61% of white renters have access to affordable housing, that's a D grade. And then our grade for affordable housing access for Black renters is still lower. So we're looking at about 45% of Black renters have access to affordable housing, earning St. Louis an overall an even lower score of an F. All right, so 82% of white homeowners can access affordable housing, but only 72% of Black homeowners can. So we're seeing the gap along the lines of race and income. All right, I'm seeing some questions pop up in the chat. They're wanting you to use the Google Forms, and the link is shared in the chat to get your questions answered. All right, and thumbs up for me. Can you guys put it in the chat? Can everybody clearly see the screen? Oh, they're tiny. I am so sorry. How's that? Talk to me in the chat. Ah, that's better. I just been rambling on. I'm sorry, y'all. Let me see if there is possible for me to also zoom in on some of it. Okay. Also, the report card got a little blurry. It was hard to see the numbers. All right, so in the beginning it was good. It just got a little blurry at the report card. My apologies, y'all. What I can also do is make this PowerPoint available as well. So we can send it out. If you registered, then we can just send it out via email to you. Okay, great. All right. I wanted to also quiz y'all. Okay, so, but I won't do that because that was my fault that you can see the screen. So I wanted to show you all kind of the supply and demand of it on both sides. So we're looking, this is for renter occupied. This is for renter occupied units in the city and in the county. It shows that if you look at the black lines, that's the total amount of housing units we have at each of those income brackets. So if you're making 31% or more, you see that though we have a surplus of affordable housing units for those income brackets. Now it's at it's at folks who are making 30% of the AMI or less. So folks around that $25,000 range, that we see a huge unmet demand. We're about 36,000 units short. Another thing to keep in mind when we're talking about the supply and demand model is that each of these income brackets still are going to compete. If a person, in the 80 to 100% AMI, if they see a unit that's, 546 or, 650, and it's what they need for their certain, for their household, they're going to most likely go after it. So what we're having is competition between all of the different income levels. So it's really putting folks in the lower income brackets at a disadvantage to have to fight for those, to have to compete for those units. All right, I wanted to give us a breakdown of the actual units, the type of units that we'll need. So among that 36,000 units that we're short, about 28,000 of them are 1-bedroom units that we need. 7,000 of them are 2-bedroom units, and 1,900 of them are 3-bedroom units. And again, noting the complications of limited supply. So this is that same supply and demand model that I supply for the renters. This is the same one, but this is for owners. So this is for homeowners. And what we're seeing is there's enough affordable housing units, enough a supply of housing units for at all income levels when it comes to home ownership here in St. Louis. So we're thinking about, there's a question like, how is race a factor? So we've broken it down by income level. We see that folks at the lowest end are housing cost burden. We're also seeing that folks at the lower end are also not able to find affordable units as a huge unmet demand when we break it down by income. Also within that income level, you're going to see multiple race and ethnicities. But when we do look at it by race, we're seeing that the majority of those folks that are having a hard time finding affordable housing or lack the access to affordable housing, a big chunk of them are Black folks. And then following that, we have Asian folks in the St. Louis city who are having a hard time finding accessible, affordable housing. So I'm just gonna briefly go over this before I move into the actual, I don't want to call them strategies. In the next section, we're gonna break down, we're gonna take a look at kind of how the system is currently operating. So what resources do we have for home repair? What resources do we have for increasing the number of affordable units, right? But I did want you all to be able to see this again, especially because I had it so tiny earlier. So just to briefly cover it, overall, St. Louis gets a C when it comes to affordable housing. And yes, C's get degrees, but if you lived in a house with my mama, you always wanted to come home with an A, right? And besides living in a house with my mama, everyone deserves quality, affordable housing. It's as simple as that. It's a human right. It's on the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Like we need safety, we need security, and we need shelter, right? So to also reiterate the lowest income level, so we're looking at 50% AMI and below, have the least amount of access to affordable housing. Renters, 56% of renters only have access to affordable housing, which also gets us an F. And this is how we broke it down by race, right? So we're seeing Black households are not faring well, especially Black renters when it comes to accessing affordable housing. And renters in general, as it seems, are lacking affordable housing. All right, so here are the themes that we explored. I can make this one a bit smaller. All right, so the things that we explored, like I said, break down the current data, policies, and initiatives that the city and St. Louis County have to address these goals. So ultimately, to achieve more affordable housing in St. Louis, we need to simply preserve existing affordable housing and build new housing opportunities. So here's how we're currently addressing that. And I know some of you probably like, I want to know, how do we address it? Okay, so one of the ways to improve our current housing situation is to maintain the quality of existing affordable housing. So both subsidized housing and for the naturally occurring housing in the market. When unsubsidized housing units cost more to maintain or to keep up on property taxes than they bring in rental income, they are at higher risk of either increasing rents, which then gets passed on to renters, or the units become and stay vacant. Okay, someone said too small. Okay, let me pull it back up. Give me a moment here. Okay, is that better? All right, you're welcome, Kai. So vacant properties are at a higher risk of being permanently removed from the housing supply through demolition. So according to the 2019 American Community Survey estimates, there are nearly 38,000 long-term vacant properties, residential units here in the St. Louis region, 38,000 of them vacant. You know, something to think about. Another way for us to improve our affordable housing situation is by improving the quality of existing units. So ensuring units are both functional and accessible. So housing quality refers to both the physical condition of a unit and the quality of the physical and social environment where the home is located. So when I say physical environment, is the house well insulated? Is it free of mold? The social environment, are there amenities like grocery stores, schools, and libraries nearby? So housing quality is one of the most important measures of success for us, especially to the members of the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Coalition. However, it is one of the most difficult to measure given a lack of timely and meaningful data collection at the both federal and local level. Keeping people in their homes or preventing displacement is another goal suggested by the report to improve affordable housing for our region. All right, good to hear, Joanne. Thank you. You guys are keeping me on track. So where was I? So displacement occurs when residents are forced to move from their homes through formal or informal evictions for renters, or foreclosures and tax sales for homeowners. So displacement also occurs when rent is raised past the point that renters can't pay, right? Over the span of 5 years, rents have risen 11% in St. Louis City and County, while evictions were reduced to about 70% between 2019 and 20, and that was largely due to the federal moratoriums, of course. But there is widespread concern over these mass evictions. So pre-pandemic, STL County had about was averaging 4,800 evictions annually, while St. Louis City was around 3,100. Another goal from the report is to preserve existing affordable housing through financing for home repair and rehabilitation. Property owners should generally plan to spend about 1% to 2% of their home's value on annual maintenance. And there are existing programs in place to help homeowners make repairs. So you have the City of St. Louis's Healthy Home Repair Program, but that program also has a wait list of over 5 years, and there's over 1,200 people on it. So here's what we currently see happening with federal and local repair dollars. So there's an insufficient maintenance and renovation dollars for public housing agencies to maintain their housing portfolio to a high standard. And there was about $219 million in home improvement capital deployed in St. Louis City and in the county in 2020. What we saw, though, is that Black applicants were more than twice as likely to be denied home improvement than their white counterparts in 2020. Another goal that we're looking at is like increasing the quantity of affordable housing. It's a fairly obvious goal, right? Building new affordable housing opportunities would help reduce the unmet demand for affordable housing in our region. We've built over 13,000 units in the last 6 years, but the vast majority of those units are only affordable to high-income households. So for affordable housing to help families thrive, not just survive, housing opportunities must be located in places where they want to live, and it needs to be, also at a level in which they can afford. So affordable housing to help St. Louis's attain permanent housing stability, home ownership has to become also more attainable for low-income households. Because as we saw, when you're a homeowner, you're less likely to be housing burdened. And there's plenty of affordable housing, affordable for sale housing for homeowners. So we discussed the importance of amenities and folks desiring to live where they wish, and that is where support and mobility as an affordable housing goal comes into play. Housing mobility programs are intended to help low-income households, typically families with children, move to housing units of their choice in areas that may have the schools that they desire to go to, or it's closer to their job. The primary tools to support household mobility in our region is a housing choice voucher program, which provides rental assistance to low-income households to access housing in the private market. Housing vouchers are the most common form of subsidized housing in our region. We have about 13,000 housing vouchers currently in use, which equates to about 51% of housing of all subsidized affordable housing units. My bad on that. So housing choice vouchers of all forms of subsidized housing are the most likely to be used or located in majority Black census tracts. So the form of subsidized housing that results in the least racial segregation of affordable housing opportunities in our region is the Section 8 project-based vouchers. So despite the intent of housing choice vouchers as a means to support mobility, the actual use of these vouchers is primarily located in concentrated areas. So this map is just showing a distribution of where housing choice vouchers recipients typically are able to take or use their vouchers. It doesn't necessarily show where they wanted to live, but rather where they are able to find housing that meets, program criteria and that the landlords are willing to accept it. So you're supposed to accept it. You're not supposed to discriminate against someone based on the where their income is coming from. And in our region, the largest municipalities that do not have any households that use vouchers are Wildwood, Clayton, Town and Country, Ladue, and Brentwood. So if you see most places located west. So the last strategy outlined in the Affordable Housing Report Card is to improve our grade. Is to improve financing options for building new affordable housing opportunities. So building new affordable housing opportunities requires financing for land acquisition, demolition, construction, and rehabilitation of formerly blighted properties or properties with a non-residential past. Of course, new affordable housing also faces issues regarding race. Black applicants are 3 times more likely than white applicants to be denied a home mortgage loan. Now, there were some other themes we didn't have a chance to explore. We put them in the report saying that they were important, but it just required additional data and further research. So it will be included in a future report. Some of those included improving the quality of life for residents. So we're thinking, neighborhoods that have better access to amenities, living wage jobs, and reducing disparities in health, education, environmental quality, things of that sort. And then to eliminate, so the enforce fair housing policies, that's about eliminating housing discrimination. Because as you saw in the last slide about social mobility, housing mobility, folks are being discriminated against because they have a Section 8, housing voucher. So currently, there's some federally protected classes, like you can't discriminate against people for their race, color, national origin. In addition, there's we're considering that there should be some other protected classes within that definition. And then the last one is increasing accessibility to rental housing and with supportive services for some of our most vulnerable populations. So residents with special needs, including, we're thinking seniors, veterans, and people with disabilities. So that's more that we want to do some additional research on. All right, we've come to the end of it and I've done enough talking. I do have a few questions for you all, but I also wanted you to know that if you wanted to stay involved, you can join the coalition, which is the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Coalition. What they're planning to do, what the team is planning to do is getting a bunch of feedback from folks who have had the opportunity to be in to hear a presentation, and they want to decide how they move forward. So any feedback that you give, because I'm going to be asking you a few questions, it's going to be used to go towards that survey. You will be anonymous. However, it will inform how, kind of what actions the coalition takes next to bring about more affordable housing in the region. One of the biggest things that the Affordable Housing Trust Fund Coalition has done, they've supported the creation of an affordable housing trust fund in the county, and they've been able to advocate to get the Affordable Housing Trust Fund here in the city of St. Louis fully funded. It was fully funded to the legal amount of $5 million, and they pushed a little harder, and it was actually fully funded past the $5 million, which was great. So that's some work that they've done in the past, and they want to continue to improve the conditions to bring about more affordable housing in our region for some of our most vulnerable populations. So if you want to get involved, go to the website and you can get involved and join the coalition. If you want a presentation scheduled for your church group or your neighborhood organization or your workplace, you can also go to that website and sign up for that. And we can also tailor the presentation to your audience. So this was a big group, so we had like a broad overview. But if there's any particular data that your group is going to need to make better decisions on how you move, or what, if your group is like, we want to figure out how to solve this for our own community, then we can tailor the presentation so that it meets the needs of your community. And then on the side, we have resources for folks who may be dealing with issues. If you are being evicted or know someone who is being evicted, whether informally or formally, you can give a call to Homes for All. That's 314-252-8356. Of course, there's also some direct cash assistance for St. Louis residents. And then you can also, for bill assistance, COVID assistance, weatherization, we have all of that here. And I told you I will make this available to you, so you don't have to rush and try to write everything down. All right, and that's that free tenant hotline. It's a renter hotline. You can give it a call. And here's a link here as well for folks who want to share their personal story. This is a little tiny URL where you can go and share your story, and it will be anonymous. But like I said, your contribution, anything that you can share with us, humanizes this report and connects it to what we should. It keeps us focused on what we should be focused on and prioritizing. And lastly, I have a few, I'm going to stop sharing on this screen. And then I have a few, before we hop into questions, I have a few questions for you all. So I told you where I was from. So I'm originally from St. Louis, but I want to get an idea of where everyone's coming from, what part of the city or county you're repping, so we can you can participate in this poll really quickly. Just a few questions. And you can send this you can do it via text message. So I'm taking responses right now. You can just text a forward STL to 22333. Share your zip code with me. Where are you repping? I am 63118. So I'm city bound. Looks like I got some neighbors up in here. And for I see some folks couldn't use the polling tool. It's all right. I see that you put it in the chat. Thank you. Thank you, Leisha, Jerry. Marcus, I see you, 63119. All right, y'all. And then I got a few others. One that I'm really interested in because we talked about housing cost burden. So remember, housing cost burden was that if you're a renter, if you're paying more than 30% of your income towards renting utilities, and for a homeowner, it's still 30%. 30% or more, but it's also, what your utilities, your fees, and your taxes are as well. So I have another poll, so you can share with me where you fall in terms of housing cost burden. So the way that this one works is that you text whichever code you think you fall under. So if you are spending less than 30% of your income on housing costs, then you would text 82342 to 22333. And remember, you could also share it in the chat if you cannot access and I see some of you have already started doing that. And thank you for being bold and having the courage to share that. And then the last one is about housing injustices. What are some things that you've had to go through? And I'm going to pop these up on the screen. And the ones that I'm about to show you, multiple may apply to you, and you can put in as many as you'd like. So let me share this screen. So some people can relate. There's folks saying that they've tried to get a loan for a new home or housing repair and they haven't been able to do that. Some folks are experiencing either increased rent or increased property taxes. A good 38% of us are saying that we've had difficulty finding affordable housing. Thank y'all for sharing. Thank you. And I want to bring in Kiana so we can start looking at some questions and seeing, because y'all came prepared. So let's hear these questions.
Okay, so the first question I have is from Aaron, and it says, "What is the role of real estate developers? How can developers work to positively address affordable housing?"
So I would say one thing that this report didn't offer was like really detailed strategies on how to address our affordable housing needs. But from the presentations that I've done and just my experience in community development, so the first part of the question was, what is the role of real estate developers? First of all, if you are a real estate developer, you took a huge step by coming to this meeting, right? So that you have an understanding of what the landscape is and what the actual housing need is. So kudos to you. I would say the role is being able, when you come into a community, connecting with the community members to identify what their needs are. I mean, you already have the data showing kind of, and even I'll also pull up the website because we have a tool where you can look at each neighborhood and it shows you where those units are at every income level. So one thing that you could probably use that to even identify what communities you can go into and form a relationship with and potentially develop housing in those areas based on the needs of those communities.
So next I have one question from Liz and then asking if you could share those reading materials with the group as well that you talked about earlier. We can add that to the email we send out later if you'd like. And then she also asked about tiny houses. There were some tiny houses being built downtown. Do you know anything about those?
I don't know much about the tiny houses being built. I think there's two development, and as I go on and I'm about to talk about it, I don't know anything, but here's what I have to. So there's two development being built. One is specifically for veterans, and that is that's actually a nonprofit group out of Kansas City. So they've already got a model in Kansas City and they're coming here to replicate it. Yeah, Kansas City is ahead of us on some things, but I'm happy they are so we can learn from them. And then the other tiny house development is specifically for low income or the low income and unhoused individuals. I do not know when the developments will be like completed, or have they started letting folks in, or I don't know the details on that.
So another person asked about one of the slides. There was a breakdown on the percentage of housing incomes based on Black people, white people, AAPI, and then people of color. They were wondering if there was like a further breakdown of the people of color one that they could find, or if you know.
Let me pull it up really quickly. I think though you're talking about the slide that said, how is race a factor? Okay. Is people of, let me pull that one up first so I don't get this in, so I don't get it wrong. I exited out of the slide, y'all, so I gotta pull it back up. Excuse me.
If you don't mind, while you're pulling that up, there's another one that came up multiple times in different scenarios.
Okay.
Basically, people are just wondering, how can they find affordable and safe housing right now? Like, what would you recommend they try to do to kind of like help them speed up the process on their end?
Mm-hmm. For the person who requested, I just pulled it up. For the person who requested a breakdown of the people of color, I'll have to ask, the researcher was Christina. I'll have to ask her, and I can send it in that full-on email to you all. So some questions I may not be able to answer, but I can do what I can to get the information you all need. And can you say that other question? What was that last question?
Yeah, multiple people have asked in different ways about how can they find safe and affordable housing at this time?
Man, that's a good question. I put some resources on the kind of last two slides, and there's rental assistance, there's all these different type of cash assistance that we've put on here. I would say the best bet, I cannot guarantee that you will be able to get safe, affordable housing right now, right? So there's the 211 number. There's the Homes for All hotline, which is 314-252-8356. And then there's the Gateway housing portal. And I'll give you all that number as well.
So that was actually the last question that we have on the form right now. If anyone else had any questions that you want to submit through the chat really quick, I think we might have time for one or two more.
And David says they love KC, especially after the Chiefs win. Yes, many people do. Well, Stephanie, pop your question in the chat since it's not popping up in the form right now. That's all with. No problem, Amanda. You're welcome. It was a long question, Stephanie.
So I have it here. It says, I'm a person with mobility issues. Many of the senior housing apartments are 2 to 3 stories. I recently went to Wentzville and saw a senior community where the sector was 1 floor with a garage. I fell in love because it was what I've been looking for, and the rent was what I could afford. Unfortunately, my income fell below the guidelines. Are there any plans for either St. Louis City or St. Louis County to build such senior communities instead of stacking us on top of each other?
I don't know at this moment if there are plans for a new senior housing development. And then Elaine says, any data concerning crime in communities with poor housing. Elaine, that was a debate on what data should we research. And crime was considered out of our purview. So we wanted to focus solely on the housing itself.
Are there any more questions? Are you able to share the developer's name for the veterans?
I can look it up for you. I think the nonprofit is acting as the developer, but I could double check on that. Let me make sure before I hop off, I want to make sure that I have all the questions that I couldn't answer. I want to make sure that I have them down. Okay.
I also shared with you the form itself, so that if we have any more questions, we could send them out later.
Oh, okay. So I don't need to type up my own separate notes.
All right. Well, we are just about, oh, go ahead. Sorry, Sunny.
Yeah, so Stephanie is asking, Stephanie, what area are you in? Okay, you're in the city. So there's really, when it comes to finding out about the developers that are building in your area, you have to do what happens right now is like you have to do the legwork to find that out. So you'd have to stay updated on the city's website and attend some of those meetings, or you can read the notes from those meetings, like the agenda, the meeting notes from the housing committee meetings, and then you'll see what new developments are coming. And then it'll also show you which ones are, and you'll only see the ones who are getting public funding. So these are folks who are usually applying for some type of tax incentive. So there are private developers who use their own private money to develop housing in an area. But then you have developers who wish to get some type of tax incentive or additional local funding. And so those are the ones that would show up in those meetings and those notes and attend those meetings. So it's the housing committee meetings for the Board of Aldermen.
All right.
Elaine, what about the data connecting poor housing and education? We didn't do anything related to education. But you're finding there is a report that connected that though. It was the equity indicators report. So Elaine, the equity indicators report looked at how housing, not the quality of housing or transient housing impacted students' ability to achieve in school. It wasn't very detailed. It just kind of gave us like a grade.
Great. Well, it is just about time for us to end the program. So I'd like to take this opportunity to thank Sunny and BlackRock Consulting for the presentation today. And also thank you to everyone for attending. Please go to slpl.org for a complete list of our other library programs, along with information on services and resources that we have available at the library. And like we've mentioned a couple of times, we will send out the slide deck along with links to the recording of this that will get posted to the library's YouTube channel in a day or two. And we hope everyone has a great evening. Thank you so much for attending.
Bye.